In this lesson, we're going to create the API service class. So what we're going to do is, we'll add a new folder inside our project and then rename this folder to services. Then inside this folder, we'll add a new C# class and name it API service. Now let's change the class access modifier to public. Alright. In this API service class, we'll create a method and name it getWeather. Now inside this method, we'll create a new HTTP client. Now when we'll call the REST APIs, then it's the HTTP client which will take our request to the server. Then with this HTTP client, we need to call the method. In REST APIs, when we add the record, then we use post request. When we update the record, then we use put request. And in case of deleting the record, we'll use the delete method. Now, in case of get or fetch the data, we need a get method. So with this HTTP client, we'll call the get string async method. And this method will send the request and will get the response in the JSON format. Here we need to add our API URL. So what we're going to do is, we'll copy our API URL and paste it here. Here we'll pass our coordinates like latitude and longitude. So in this method, we'll add two parameters of type double and name it latitude and longitude. Okay, then in this URL, we'll concatenate the latitude and longitude. So we'll wrap this URL in string.format function. And then in place of latitude and longitude, we'll add a placeholder like 0 and 1 in the curly brackets. And after this URL, we'll add the comma separator and pass this latitude and longitude, which we'll get from this function. Remember that this is an async method, so we need to use the await keyword here. And now we'll get an error because await can't be used without async. So we need to make this method asynchronous by using the async keyword. Alright, let's store the result in a variable and name this variable to response. Basically, this response variable contains the JSON data which we'll get from this API URL. Now, once we get the data, then we need to deserialize this data into C# classes so that we can show it inside our mobile application. So when we'll get the data in the JSON format, then we'll convert the JSON data into C# classes by using JSON-convert.deserialize object. For this JSON-convert.deserialize object, we need a NuGet package, that is JSON.NET or Newtonsoft.Json. So in the package manager, we'll search this package and let's install it. Once we'll install this package, then we'll close this window, and right after that, we'll use JSON-convert.deserialize object. Then resolve the namespace for Newtonsoft.Json. Now in the deserialize object, we need to pass the class name and the JSON data. We'll get the JSON data from the response variable, so we'll pass the response here, and we need to map this JSON according to the root class. because root class is the parent class. So we'll map the JSON according to our root class. Now let's return this by using the return statement. And our method will return the response according to the root class. But we'll get an error, and that's because we are using the void. And here we are returning the data according to the root class. So if we set the type of this method to root, then we'll still get an error. And that's because if we'll make the method async, then we need to use the task keyword. If we don't return anything, then we'll use the task keyword. But if we want to return something, then we need to use the task of type. And this type could be anything. It could be a string, integer, float, list, or even object. Because we are returning the data according to the root class, so we'll make the type of this method to task of root. Alright, we'll continue our work in the next lesson.